Hey everyone, let's learn from the master barbarian himself, Robert E. Howard, on how to be a better storyteller and narrator and game master in your TTRPG games. Hey everyone, welcome to Nashcraft with Brady, here to talk about improving your, how can I call this, like improv or in the moment narration that so many of us wish that we could have and sort of employ on the fly at the drop of a hat. And it's a skill that we sort of see being demonstrated maybe, or we think is being demonstrated sometimes in our favorite live streams or actual plays or in various summary recaps of a campaign that you had maybe read. And I just wanted to share some thoughts that I've been sort of cooking up in regards to this subject, because I began to think about this concept when I went and visited the Robert E. Howard Museum up in North Texas about 2 years ago now, just past the 2-year mark. Great little experience. Everyone should go check that place out. Yes, it's in sort of the middle of nowhere, Texas, and the house that he grew up in and lived in is still there. That's essentially the museum. And yeah, this very nice lady met me there, and she elderly lady, and she had tons of knowledge, and I got to pick her brain on a bunch of different stuff. And they have awesome artifacts from stuff he wrote as like a kid, some of his early short stories, which, you know, or maybe you just get to see a couple pages of it, and yeah, you can totally see where the evolution of what he became later on. Very fascinating. And she was sort of lamented to me as well. I don't know why I'm on this tangent, but she lamented to me that because I think she made a point that Arnold Schwarzenegger, so well known for his role as the titular character Conan the Barbarian, right? He has never actually visited the little town of oh my god, I can't even. What's the name of it on the top of my head? I have to look this up. What? Cross Plains. Yeah, that's what it is. Right before I got it. Yeah, Cross Plains, Texas. Yeah, I should have looked it up right before. I remembered it just as I did it. And yeah, we camped out in a place close by to it in a teepee. That was super cool. And then I went and checked out the museum and did my little pilgrimage there to the Texas saint patron of fantasy writing. He's actually out there before Tolkien, so consider that. But one thing that when I was at the museum that the sort of museum host was talking to me about was a tradition that Robert and his dad did with his dad's friends. And I guess it was this tradition of what they called them the Windies. And the Windies were essentially improv short stories, and that you would just make up a story like on the spot. And I guess it would be a sort of competition about who could one up another, or who could make the most, fascinating or intriguing one, I guess, or something. And I guess Robert E. Howard in this case ended up being, precocious and like very good at it. And so once again, just another example of him being able to be the storyteller that we know him known for. But once again, I think that the point is that this was a tradition that they did in this family, and it's sort of like a muscle that you have to train. Being able to, on the fly, just be able to, off the dome, rattle off scenes or imagery or tastes and sounds and sights and all this sort of different stuff, and being able to think of characters, on the fly and make dialogue and make them unique and individual. And I think that, just hearing her talk about this particular thing was, I thought, really important, because I'm thinking about D&D at the same time, right? Not just because he's, really well known for, of course, providing so many staples and tropes from, heisting a really deadly temple or fighting evil sorcerers and all that stuff. It's also of note that Robert's dad was a traveling doctor, physician, surgeon of sorts, and I imagine and believe that he also probably saw lots of gore and wounds and all sorts of damage done to the human body that would be relayed to Robert, when his dad would come home. And Robert also lived in a very, wild, wild west sort of time period. We're just coming out of that sort of period, but a lot of Texas probably still looks like that in a sense, that open, wild, wild west sense. But now there's this oncoming industrialization, and they have all these oil refineries and all these guys that Howard grew up with would eventually go and work these very, very grueling jobs. And he I think related in some of his biographies about seeing some guys, the people that you knew you went to elementary school with, getting, whacked in half and torn asunder by some crazy iron or oil rig or something like that, right? And yeah, just utterly decimated and gone. And even other supposedly, as he would relate, hardworking men getting shot by sort of corrupt lawmen, kind of Jim Thompson-esque kind of sounding situations, maybe in a sense. And so, yeah, there's lots of, real violence around Howard, and you can maybe see some of these descriptions coming out because he's known for his battle scenes. He's known for the sword swinging its death song through the air as it cleaved into the clavicle and torn, through bone and sinew. He's just very good at that. But it makes sense that he's relying on the things that he's, just knows, very viscerally around him as well. And so just relying on those strengths of what you know and what you can easily draw from is good for this improv, or needing to be in an improv in case something goes off the rails or something like that. And I've already made a story or another video on Robert E. Howard scenes being really good for making decisions in D&D as well. But hearing about these Wendy's or the short stories, I thought was like really interesting. And it's something that I've been trying to do a little more with even my own children, and just see if I can like spin tales on the fly. And I think, maybe you're familiar with this too, but my parents, or my mom in particular, definitely told me about, her dad making up bizarre, weird children's stories, and plenty of other people and famous authors. Once again, back to Tolkien, The Hobbit started out as something for his kids, essentially, right? And so think about, how prevalent storytelling on a folkloric sense, on a small scale sense, has provided so much rich rich stories and tropes and ideas for us to draw from. So I think that, we should be taking more cues from Robert E. Howard, and, think about these little short story scenes, and maybe, if you have someone else that you can share a story with, or, if you've got some of your own kids, maybe try, employing some of that in your own practice, right? I even made up some story because I've just been reading so much Norse mythology, and I just had so much of that stuff just sort of cooking in my head. And my daughter, of course, like all little girls, loves Frozen and all that sort of stuff. And, I've also got a son too. I've got two boys. And so, but I wanted a story that, I wanted to think of something that I could just tell on the fly. But, I had this inception of this idea of because Elsa is not married yet, and so I thought of this fiery character who's maybe like cursed by, a sort of Loki-like spirit, a fire spirit of some sort, and so he's accidentally always constantly setting things on fire. And I thought, that's a perfect sort of foil to Elsa, and that sort of archetype just was just drawn up from my subconscious, just because I've been having all this other stuff ruminating in my head, and I was just able to kind of like riff this story. Just, in the moment, real time. And it was highly, engaging for myself, because, I get to think I'm, real smart or whatever, drawing from all this, heady old stuff, but also provide a, meaningful sort of like little story for my daughter. Now she constantly asks me to retell it, over and over again. Right. And now we're down to the old tradition of like, what exactly did I say in that one time, and who exactly was this other thing and the other. So, but once again, I think improving the memory, we rely, or put so much of this mental stuff on other stuff, onto other, computing systems, and, don't ever, let's not let ChatGPT tell us all of our short stories when we can do it ourselves. And, I talk so much about books on this channel as well. I've got, some people have all their walls of, D&D books, and, I've got the games that I love to play because, I've sold all the books I don't really play anymore. I just like to keep what I use a lot. Some of the stuff I do keep for reference, but, I don't keep the whole collections like I did. Like, all my 5e books are gone now. All my Pathfinder books are gone. I think I kept, like, one Pathfinder book, but I kept the Player's Handbook for 5e. But but otherwise, I still love books. That's why, Crown and Skull, what a beautiful book. But it's also a game, right? But I have so much of this other material that I like to read and sort of like let it cook in my head, and then employ it in my D&D scenes. Sometimes I need a name, and I'm like, here's a Renaissance guy I just read, or here's a barbarian clan. I just think of some random combination of Norse sounding, front ends and back end names. Ordir, or Grimbald, or whatever. It's just, you can just sort of piece that stuff together really quickly once all that stuff's been sitting in your head, and whatever you're sort of interested in, or maybe you're professionally involved with, that you can sort of introduce into your game. Just rely on that extra stuff when you don't even realize it could be useful in a sense, So I think names, backward names are slightly changing a name. Even some basic name like, oh, there's a guy I work with and his name is Ronald, but now just call him Ronolf, if you just needed a name real quick and you just, put something at the end or change a little letter there, and now all of a sudden you got a very fancy name. Or just, do the classic thing of put a hyphen in the middle of a name, and then all of a sudden you've got or apostrophe in the middle of or whatever in the middle of a word, and then all of a sudden it becomes, a fantasy name, instead of Brady, it's Brady, or, whatever, right? And so I think relying on, your whatever's currently on your head or whatever you're currently reading, and practicing this muscle, I said, of short storytelling, and you don't have to shoot for something very long. You could go Aesop's Fable and pick something like really, really short, a page long, or you could kind of, try your hand at something a little longer. And sometimes I think the story will kind of end up telling itself about what's going to happen. And so I think, just understanding the stakes of a story, understanding the character arcs of a story. I'm not saying that D&D is exactly in that sense, but you can rely on those sorts of, like I said, these muscles in order to tell in the moment, because sometimes your players are going to choose to do something that you can't quite, foresee in a sense. And so, you're going to have to make up some stuff, or even some scenes, even if you have it down to the detail, you still have to act it out. And I think that all that stuff is still going to be pertinent to getting this sort of verisimilitude, player immersion inside your game scenes, right? So I think that's my little pitch today. Go read some, Robert E. Howard, go read all of his classic works, and go read some short stories. I always kind of pitch those as well in a sort of fast age, pace of our lives. Short stories can be, like I said, a really satisfying way of reading a complete little story there and having a complete arc, and kind of maybe have some momentum about completing something, right? And so let me know if you appreciate any of this discussion or these ideas down below, or if you've had any of this sort of similar experience about being able to employ random stuff you've read in the moment gameplay and sort of improv. And if you need any Shadow Dark supplements, make sure you go check down the links below. I've got tons of supplements on TTRPG that you can, if you want to support the channel. Otherwise, liking and subscribing, of course, but if you want to support the channel, you can go pick up some, PDFs if you think that they'll help you with your game. So we'll end it here, and thanks so much for sticking here to the end. We'll see you on the next video. Adios, everyone.